Hello and welcome to another soniclab presentation. There seem to be a lot of new products coming at the moment, just in time for Christmas. And I guess Christmas has come early from Akai as well. This is Tom, and he's showing us the new APC64, which is a complete change from what we saw last time with the APC.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, this is the brand new APC64. It's essentially our new APC Ableton controller. You've got these 8x8 pads here, which enable you to control your scenes and your clips and launch directly from the machine. And then you've got these Touchstrips here, which enable you to control anything in your devices or sends, pans, volumes, etc. directly from wherever you take the machine, which is really useful. And then you've got our notes mode, chord mode here, where we can trigger notes and chords literally straight into the session and record, whether it's a studio session or a live show. And then we've got our step sequencer here, where we can integrate with Ableton and send step sequence into our Ableton project, or we can use it in standalone mode and send our step sequence out to hardware using MIDI outs and CV gates.
Right, so we've got a pair of MIDI outs here and 8 CV gates. So that means, this will work without the computer connected at all?
This will work without the computer
just for
connected.
sequencing though, it's not doing the audio, it's...
Purely from sequencing. If you get rid of the laptop, you can sequence hardware, and you send CC messages in global and custom mode, etc. straight out to your hardware.
Really interesting. I mean, those familiar with obviously push hardware will slot right in, because obviously this has just got the same sort of grid layout.
Yeah.
And but we've got complete integration with Ableton going on here as well.
Yeah.
Right?
So you can see, as you can see here, you've got device, volume, panning, send, channel strips, etc. And as soon as you click on them, you can see these actually changing where they are on the level, because the parameters are changing. And also when I change, they've got the RGB map too, so you can see it's really easy to know where you are.
Amazing colours on these, actually, really bright, aren't they?
Yeah. So you can see, and obviously I can tell that I'm on the brown here, I'm on my bass channel here, I can jump to my pad channel and I can see the greens mapped there. And it's what's really cool is it looks like 8 touch strips, but it's more than that, because as soon as I jump from, if I launch something on my bass channel here, I can launch that device, you'll be able to see the macros mapped here. I've got my delay, I've got my envelope amount, so I release here, envelope amount, resonance, that sort of thing. But then as soon as I jump to another function here, so if I go to channel strip, it will map directly to my sends and my volume, etc., so I can send stuff through, reverbs, that sort of thing, and then I can jump straight back out and then jump to another sound. So if I bring in my drums, it will then, I can then jump straight to that channel and map auto filters.
Right, so it's basically, it's don't need the mouse, you can control directly from there.
Once you know your way around the machine, it's really easy to kind of get away from not actually looking at the machine, knowing what's on which channel.
Which is what all of these things are kind of designed to do. But the thing that I find really interesting about this is, because we're using touch strips, that means presumably you can, you could actually, if you were really clever, you could do 8 parameters at a time.
I mean, they quite literally require one finger, right? So you've got obviously if you're used to hardware where you've got to you're bringing your cutoff in like that and you're timing yourself with that, you really do have a really cool ability to be able to just jump straight from there and bring stuff in, literally bring in your sound.
Oh, that's nice. I like the distortion on that, actually, but I'm not sure that was intended, but yeah, it sounded great. So in terms of the sequencer layout, so we've got all the standard modes, so we can do the scales and the keyboard and the note mode, and that integrate generally with Ableton as well, right? So
Yep, so we can go from, so if I jump across here into my note mode, it will show me scale setup. Now this is on an F minor scale. I can go F Dorian scale even. I can go into configure here and I can jump in and it will show me essentially how exactly I want my notes and chord tonality to come up. So if I want, something from F to G to F sharp, whatever, I can choose it up here or use the encoder down here, and then I can choose how I want it to appear. So if I go across here, I can choose.
So that's a familiar layout to people who are used to that 8x8 setup.
Exactly, or for instance like this. I mean, I've had it in before. I just had it in this octave setup like that, and it's going up by octave. Obvious root note at the bottom on the left and right. And for people who are familiar with Ableton and use drum racks a lot, you can jump across to your notes mode, and when you've got your drum rack selected, it will come up in your 4x4 drum rack. If you've got more sounds than that, you can just scroll up and down.
You can scroll up and down, right, as standard.
Yeah. And then if I jump into chord, I've got similar thing in terms of it's going to you're gonna be able to choose the key, but obviously the difference is you choosing the chord too. So minor or major, 1 3 5 7, 1 3.
Well, you've obviously memorised these. Presumably, there's like a little cheat sheet somewhere where people can figure this stuff out. I mean, this is the thing. The thing that I always like about using the 8x8 grid to actually control the unit as well. It makes a lot more sense. Keeps you away from that.
It's
sort of
not
endless
just using
scrolling,
it for playing live. You've got the 8x8 grid to also go into your configurations, which means that you know, just the speed and the workflow is really fast once you get used to it. And again, just getting you, like you say, getting you away from looking at that screen or the laptop.
We've got a single USB-C connection here. That's handling MIDI and power.
Yep, that's handling MIDI and power straight into the laptop.
And then other physical connections, we've got so MIDI in and 2 MIDI outs. Are they separate MIDI outs or are they just sort of throughs?
So these MIDI outs are sending they're sending the exact same MIDI output, but just via the two different
so it just enables you to
outputs. So you can choose. You've got 16 different channels. Yeah, from there.
And then the CV outputs here, we've got 8 of those built in as well. So essentially, there is a kind of audio interface built in here, but it's sending sort of DC coupled and MIDI stuff. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can so I could have this session sending my Ableton, you know, sending some of my stuff from Ableton going through like this, and then I could jump from my step sequencer, and that could be coming out there at the same time to bits of hardware. Which is, that integration again, it's really, really useful. So so let's go into like playing some stuff. I can either bring in stuff that I've already got in the session in Ableton, or I can go into like jamming something in. So I can go into this track here, I've got this enabled, but then to take that one step further, I can jump in and use the device to kind of record in automation as well. So
at the same time on the clip, right.
So if I jump in here, I can go... You can see that's lit up red because it's recording the automation.
And you're getting the feedback as well.
So you're getting that. Go back to my session view, keep jamming out other elements. I've just brought in a different chord, but that's from something that's already been pre-programmed. But then I can also record the automation in as well. So if I jump to that channel, record that. If I hit shift record, you can overdub, and it's gone red, you'll see there. And that means that that's recorded in that automation as well.
So the design, I mean, you know, as with all of these kind of devices, but this is a step up again from the last series of APC hardware, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, this is much deeper integration from what I see.
Yeah, it's much deeper integration. The ability to be able to like record the clips and then also record an automation, and then also just jump into jamming new ideas straight away without really having touched the screen is new and super cool.
So a couple of things about the MIDI and CV. Do the CV connections, are they accessible through Ableton, or is that more for standalone mode, or how do you route that stuff?
So the CV connections, you've got an editor where you can essentially do your connections for projects. So if I go into project mode, I've got different projects.
All right, so you can save setups and projects.
Exactly. So if I said I wanted CV1, pitch last, gates, whatever however you want it set up, you can have your setup and then you can save them within the project yourself, right? So you can create your own presets essentially, and then jump from project to project. Same with the MIDI configurations.
Because, I mean, one thing that, I know we use the APC Mini Mark 1s for all our MIDI control stuff here, and I know a lot of people use the APC range for not Ableton integration, but just for kind of generic MIDI control. You can map and do that sort of stuff with this as well still, right?
Yeah, so you would have to go into the editor and map your settings, but you can map essentially, it will be the sliders you could map to individual controls that you want. So it doesn't have to be specific.
But these are note only, aren't they? That note and you can set the note, the MIDI channel, I guess the and now that's got poly pressure on
these pads. Yeah, these pads will be note only, but the sliders can be mapped as you will.
Okay. Fantastic. So that's direct integration.
Yeah.
But you say this has got a built-in sequencer as well. Tell me a bit more about that and how that works.
Yes. So I can jump here to the step sequencer mode. So if I can play some jump through, and I've got up to 8 sequences here. Now, right now, if I play something like this, I'm going to just stop these chords here and just jump in and unmute one of these sequences here. And that's sending that sequence here. So I've got the notes that I can choose, I've got velocity, probability, mutate, I can unmute another one. And this is sending to a dedicated channel for these step sequences within Ableton. So I'm sending one via USB out channel 1, one via USB out channel 2, and then that's integrating with Ableton.
So this is an 8-track step sequencer.
8-track step sequencer, exactly, with 8 separate sequences.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So this is running separately, so then can you send that clip into Ableton if you wanted it to be...
Yeah, so if I literally jump onto the step sequence that I'm using, I can go sequence 1, right? And then it's going to show me some of the sequence. I can go to shift, and then it says there I can do a center clip. So if I go center clip, and you'll see in Ableton the clip has popped up there, and you'll see the MIDI right there of what the step sequencer was showing.
So does that mean if you're working in standalone mode,
yeah,
you could be jamming a load of stuff with your hardware and then come back to Ableton and just go, send all of this to a session, to clips?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so you could basically have a jam, work out what you like and be like, yeah, that actually sounds pretty dope. I'm just going to send those clips directly to Ableton, and I've got the MIDI there to go and send it to whatever else I want later on. Or like reconfigure that jam.
Right,
like.
and presumably when you've got clips in Ableton, you can do all the usual stuff, duplicate and quantize.
Yeah, so yeah, within Ableton you can go duplicate, clear, copy, quantize, fix the length exactly from there.
As you would expect, so you've got all of those dedicated. Okay, right, so we've looked at this sort of integrated with Ableton. Now I think we're going to set this up so that it's playing a load of external equipment and see how it works in standalone mode. So as if by magic, that will now appear. Suddenly we're now in what would be a more sort of traditional standalone setup.
Yep.
The APC64, does it have to be switched modes? Or
yes, so if I go onto the APC64 global settings, I can switch between Ableton Live and standalone mode. So now we're in fully standalone mode with 8 separate tracks controlling the bits file where you see in front of you.
So 8 tracks, and each track presumably has its own sequence?
Yeah, so 8 tracks has its own sequence, it's got 32 steps, 16 note polyphony, and then also drum mode and notes mode that we can switch between. Right,
so the setup that we've got here, we've got a mix and match. So we've got drums and this polysynth on MIDI.
So drums on MIDI,
coming out of here.
Coming out of here, and then these two controlled by a CV. Right.
So this guy, so we've got some, as well as just gate and CV, we've got some control things which we've mapped to some faders, right?
Yeah, so we've got some control things here. So if I could jump to so you can hear that's bass sound. I've got the cut-off map there, and then if I can jump to, I've got cut-off and resonance mapped here to this polysynth, right? And then I've got drums mapped to channel. So yeah, we can basically play all these in, choose the amount of steps for each sequence individually, and we can have like dedicated swing and dedicated quantize individually for each separate track that we're running. So yeah, so we're using 6 of the CVs, so gate and CV and control, gate and CV and control for these two. So we've got the Moog and the Dread box. Yeah. And then we've got some sequences going. I guess probably the best thing to do is sort of play some stuff and sort of show us what's going on with the individual sequences. Yeah, so like that's going to be a drum sequence, presumably. That might be a chord. Exactly. So if I hit play right now, we've just got kick and snare, and we can start bringing in the other sequences as we go along, right? So we can start bringing that in. So that's this guy on MIDI. Yep, that's this guy on MIDI. Now I can like put in drum hits as I'm playing using a traditional sequencer. I've also got probability, mutate, and velocity. So if I go in probability, mid-range, velocity, put in, you'll notice those coming in there. And I can start bringing in mute, start bringing in some other. So, I mean, in the week we've only got 4 units going on here. Obviously, if we had more MIDI, we could have multiple MIDI units up to 16 or however many channels we're using. Yep. And if we weren't using control, for instance, we could have up to, I guess, 4 CV and gate machines. I mean, I could see this being used as, because a lot of people use other sequencers as part of a little modular performance thing, but I can see this work, particularly now that we've got modules which have
polyphonic and require MIDI inputs. I could see that being at the heart of this sort of thing.
That could easily be the brain of like a live show or even studio setup.
And so all this entire setup, including the routings and the mappings, that's saved into internal projects?
So if you jump into project mode, what's really cool is you can save all these settings that we've done into that individual project, and then we can go into another project, save a bunch of other settings, whether it's like stuff that you've got mapped on envelope amounts, like ADSRs, whatever you've got mapped here, modulators and whatever, and you can just jump between, as you're playing, you can jump between project settings,
so you can chain projects?
Yeah, so you can chain projects along. So if I'm playing, I can just click on another project and it will literally jump across. Now we've only got this project set up right now, but if I was to jump across.
And so how many projects can we store in?
Yeah, so we can save up to 24 individual project settings.
And then I suppose if we were if we happen to get something going and we're recording extra MIDI and stuff in, like you showed earlier, you can then send those clips when you're connected to Ableton back into Ableton.
Yeah, that's really cool, because if you've got, if this is something you're into and you like your chords, you like your bass line or whatever, when we jump back into Ableton, you've saved this up, but you've got none of this set up, you can just literally send a clip. So you could use the same MIDI and then send it to a bunch of different plugins in your Ableton session.
And so I suppose this might be asking too much, but do these movements, is there automation recorded in these patterns, or is it just the MIDI notes that are recorded?
You can't record automation into this specific, into the standalone mode, but you'll be changing, instrument anyway, so it's not
Sure. And I guess, so we've got 32 steps per sequence, and can you change the sort of resolution of each sequence and the step lengths? And so you could have a 16 and a 5 and a 3 and all of that sort of stuff.
Exactly, so if you go step, configure, choose a sequence, I can actually change this from like 24 steps to 16 steps to 30 steps, whatever, and that's going to be individual.
And also the resolution, so if you wanted to have a 32 step at quarter notes, you'd have a chord on each one and have a very long evolving sequence.
So like here you can change it from eighth notes, quarter notes, 16 notes, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Well, so I mean, this is as you see this, or around this time, there will no doubt be other videos out there. But watch this one. This is shipping now, available now.
Yeah. So this is available globally now, from your local store.
And what's the price?
It's £359.
So that's UK pounds, 359. Other currencies will be available in your territories.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Tom, thank you very much for showing us this. We can now play out with a little bit of noodling. I'm going to be allowed to touch maybe 2 or 3 things. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for coming down, Tom.
Thanks
we'll
for
see you
having me.
next time.